And there you are. Oh, it got my name on it, even though I put. Oh, maybe just say this is for, you know.
Come on. I know Sarah and I think Tim and Washington.
They still have. John, did you want to do a meeting tomorrow or not?
Do what?
Do you want to do a meeting tomorrow? I meant to ask. I don't think so. We can do it today.
Yeah, I mean, we can talk about everything today, I guess.
I think so. Give that.
See why not?
All right, let's make that official then.
We have all the participants. So
Yes.
All right.
Thanks.
I hit this with Seaside. He's and Chris Turner's going to join us. Dan's on vacations. Thanks. I've been on vacation a long time. Big spot. Yeah. Have you met him yet?
So Grant's coming in by
He's gonna be Zoom, yeah.
he's on. And what about Chris?
Chris Turner should be in person here.
What is Grant doing right now for us?
So Grant has inspected 1402, so he can speak to that.
Okay.
He's also involved in 1409, 1410, and he's also in the chimneys. So he's got quite a bit to share.
Okay. Is he the one that's going to oversee if we continue or having him do?
Well, so Grant's the one that wrote you these reports and proposals. So as far as his oversight, he would be in charge of design, hair design, materials, that kind of thing.
He would do the design work and then we could take that and give it to the contractor.
In a traditional format, Dan would oversee because he's boots on the ground. So yes, his repair protocol would go to the contractor. The contractor would follow those instructions.
He will supply when the contractor needs to fix.
That's the idea. Yeah.
That's all I want to know.
Yep. Good morning, sir. Join us at the table.
Oh, no. Yeah, you have to sit in the high seat. You can't sit back there.
good morning. How's everyone doing? Good. I apologize in advance. Sinuses are getting me. I do not sound like a normal person.
Which one is good?
More allergies.
Yeah, oaks or?
I think it's oats. It didn't help when I changed the blades on our bush hog this weekend.
No, it's not.
I don't know if I was right here. I'm just admiring you on camera.
You know what we had to pay him to be on the board?
Wait a minute.
Next.
Well, hang on. No HOA pays for 3 years. He name, image, likeness, he's all about, yeah. All right, it's top of the hour, so let's call a meeting to order. Nick, we have a quorum.
We do.
So,
Yes.
I think the first order of business is approval of the minutes from the May 13th board meeting. Does anybody have any comments or suggestions, revisions? And if not, could I have a motion to approve them?
I put forth a motion to approve the meeting, minutes from the last one.
Second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, let's dive into status of the roof project. Where we are, what we think the timeline looks like. And Alan, we have to depend on you for a lot of that. So if you don't mind taking over the floor, it's
No.
all yours.
I don't mind the pay I'm getting, I don't mind. Right now, they're gonna start the roof project on Monday. That entails, first of all, getting everything staged. Then they will start immediately on building 4, which is the mid-rise, and work on 22 and 21. So we'll get that completed probably in a month and a half. Then plan is to move over to 1420 itself and start on building 3, work our way around the pool, get the pool pergolas done, and then continue on. Right now, with the chimney problem we have, it's not gonna, just so you know, it won't delay the roof, it's just gonna move us around from place to place a little bit, maybe. Because we have 5 chimneys that are suspect at this point. We'll go into that after the roof project. But they're kind of entailed with the roof project, so to speak. So we'll start that on the 13th. It's gonna probably take us, because of the weather, it's gonna take longer now that we're in the middle of what we call the rainy season. So projected, my guess is 4 to 6 months to finish. So that's where we are. So now, with this starting on the 13th, we've sent out the notices about the parking. We're allowed to park anywhere we can on the circle, as long as we're not in front of the fire zone, handicap, or any of the fire hydrants. But you can park where you can, okay? And if you have to park where you have to move off the road a little bit, you can park on grass. I don't have a problem with 2 wheels on grass at this point, because we gotta make sure the fire engines can get through. Because as you know, we have alarms consistently here, especially during the summer months. So we gotta make sure they can get up that road. If parking is further needed after next week, actually it's after this week, so the week before 4th of July and the week after 4th of July, we have been told we can't park on Beach Walker, even though people were parking on Beach Walker that weren't us. We are allowed to park on Beach Walker starting next week. And that, there again, the criteria is 2 wheels off pavement, 2 wheels not in vegetation when you go off pavement. Okay, so you can park on anything that's not vegetation. Because I have a feeling we're gonna need that, because the parking restriction is severe. We're gonna put across from where the mailboxes are, that whole section is gonna be gone, that we need that for 3 dumpsters and some other equipment. And then as you exit those rows going up to where the construction people are right now for 9 and 10, most of that's gonna be gone as well. So the only real parking you're gonna have is to the right of the mailboxes and across from where you enter into Windsong, that little parking spot on the west side, on the opposite side of the trees that delineates where we're gonna put the dumpsters versus the other. That holds about 1 or 2 cars at max anyway. So it's gonna be very restrictive, okay, just so you know. I do have 1422, which is Alberta's unit. I want to thank her. She told me nobody will be in her unit after July. I will double check with her again when we get to the end of July. But we can put a car in her driveway if we have to. Okay, we're gonna park the tractor. Our 1422 has there's a road that kind of goes up to the 2 driveways there. There's a little parking spot at the end. We're gonna put the tractor there that we need for moving materials around for everything. That will not interfere with 1422. They still have their driveway. They still can get in and out, not a problem. At some point, I'd like to see if 1422 won't be here. Maybe we can use their driveway as well. I appreciate the owners that are helping us, You have no idea what a big thing that is for the association. I want to thank you very, very much for the help on using driveways. Thank you. So that's kind of where we're at the moment. We'll have more information on the chimneys as we talk about them in a little while. But that's where we are in the roof project. Any questions, let me know.
Any questions for Alan on the roof project? Okay, great. Hearing none, let's move to chimney repair.
All right.
And
Delving right into
this is Alan's meeting, so.
So we did the chimney evaluation because we were making sure that the chimneys were secure because we're capping all the chimneys. The owners who want not to use their chimney, we were going to totally cap the top so that they had no flue coming out. The ones who want to use their chimney and still want a flue, we would cap the top but make a hole so we can put the spark arrestor in it, and they can continue to use as they want. During the evaluation of the chimneys, we found that we have 5 chimneys that are a problem. The worst ones are 1418, 1422, 1402, and 1405 are considered the worst. Out of that worst, 1418 is really bad, and so is 22. So we have to come up with a solution. The best thing to do, to be honest with you, if nobody's using their chimney anymore, we should take them down. We should just take it down. It's the cheapest way also to get it done than rebuilding it. Rebuilding it's going to cost some money. So if you're not going to use your chimney and you don't have a problem with us taking it down, I think that's what we'd like to do. Now, 1418, we have to check with her. She wants to use her chimney, so I have to find out. We have to find out if that's going to be a push for us. If she wants to use it, I'm sure Josh is going to tell me I've got to fix it. So I've got to fix it, or we have to.
Yeah, so that's a question that we talked about before. And I need to get Josh's view on this. Is it your view that this is that taking down one or more of the chimneys is something that requires a 14-day notice, meeting, opportunity to be heard, and all that?
I think so. Yeah, there's only a couple of narrow exceptions. I don't think either one of them applies here. It's a material alteration of your common elements, and that requires a membership vote to be approved before it's done, unless the aggregate cost of the project is less than 25,000. But I can't imagine you can.
No, it's going to be more than 25.
Or if we believe that the only way to properly maintain the condominium is to remove the chimneys. And that's not what I've heard in previous meetings. I've heard maybe we can let people decide if they want to keep it or not. Well, if we can let people decide, it's not necessary.
Well, the difference is that if they decide they want, we have to spend a lot of money to fix them. We actually have to rebuild the chimney apparatus.
Yeah.
That's going to be costly.
Yeah.
So figure if we have to rebuild we have to look at all 5 and basically fix all 5.
Yeah.
You may be looking at another assessment.
Yeah.
And I just want everybody to know that you could be looking at about a $10,000 assessment to do the chimneys. So taking them down, we can take them down. I got a quote for $16,000, takes them all down. So we have to make a decision what to do.
So because we have to do this on a 14-day notice, I wanted to take this opportunity to get it out there and socialize it with all of our members, so the owners, so that you all could think about it. And then I suggest that within the next few days, we send out a notice, the 14-day notice, and take the necessary vote.
Yeah, it's a relatively small threshold. I think my conclusion was you just need a majority of a quorum of the membership.
Okay.
Okay.
So it's relatively small.
Well, yeah, we should probably do that then. Right?
So I think, I mean, from 1401 is also in
Yes,
the
1401.
mix there. We don't use ours. I'm inclined just to take it down.
We did some renderings with some of them gone, and you really don't notice it.
Yeah, we could circulate that
We can
with the
circulate
notice.
it.
But does anyone have any questions or comments on that subject that who is on the line today so that we can try to address it? Like I said, I wanted to make sure that the topic was out there before we sent the notice out to everyone. And if there are questions today, maybe we can address them as part of the notice that goes out for the vote to take down select chimneys.
I just want everybody to know that when they were up there inspecting some of these chimneys, there are 3 of them, they're so bad that you can hand deflect it. Meaning you put your hand on the chimney assembly and push it and it moves. That's how bad it is. It's catastrophic in my opinion.
We've got Grant online if you want him to speak to some of the technicalities.
Yeah.
Yeah, that'd be
that'd
great.
be great.
We have Grant from CSI.
Good morning, everybody.
Morning. Thanks for being here.
Yeah, absolutely.
Comment on that, on the chimney situation for us, please.
Yes, sir. Pleased to meet all of you. I know that I've met some of y'all in person. I've made a few visits out to the property now. I'll just kind of give you a little introduction. So my name is Grant Money. I'm a professional engineer working here at CSI. I've been here for about 6 months. Before that, I worked for another forensic repair firm here in the Jacksonville, Florida area. I'm actually from here in Jacksonville. Before that, I worked for a fairly large structural restoration contractor, one of the largest in the country. Did that for about 5 or 6 years. So pleased to meet y'all. So as far as the chimneys, I went out with the roofing contractor out on June 16th, and I looked at these sort of 5 that they had flagged as being potentially problematic. That was 1401, 1402, 1405, 18, and 22 are the units. I think in terms of the hand deflection, that was a pretty good synopsis here. You know, that I couldn't really describe it any better. You know, that they under just hand pressure that they move, which is, I think, pretty problematic, right? I mean, the loads that are exerted, you know, by just, you know, hand pressure are fairly low compared to the actual design loads that you could have on these chimneys. You know, in a hurricane event, the pressures would be substantially greater. So that's concerning. And I think some of them are worse than others, but to my recollection, I think it was all 5 of those chimneys that had that problem. And when you go and you look at the framing of those chimneys, it's not particularly surprising. I think that a lot of it just has to do with the fact that they were never really framed adequately to begin with. You know, we don't have any structural as-builds for the community here, but just based on what I've seen, you know, we have basically chimneys that are framed to attic subfloor, and not attached to anything more than, you know, a half-inch thick sheathing board. With the chimneys tie into the walls, there's maybe 1 row of nails that's actually attaching it, and they didn't attach it at any other point higher up in the wall. Just from what I've seen of 1409, 1410, I don't think those are even on here, but I would agree that I think that probably the most straightforward and cost-effective approach is just going to be to remove the chimneys entirely. It's also going to be better from a moisture management standpoint because you're going to have 1 less area to flash and 1 less wall roof intersection to deal with. So I think over, you know, the lifespan of the new roof covering, I think that that's, you know, going to reduce potential incidents of leaks. So my vote, and I know I don't get a vote, my vote would be to basically just remove these chimneys as you've described, even if it takes a little bit more bureaucratic process. So that's just my thoughts based on what I've seen so far.
Grant, thank you. Appreciate the
Question. Yeah. Question, Tim?
Yeah, thank you. I just had a question on this. So is each owner responsible for their own, not only decision about what to do with the chimney, but the cost, or that's going to be spread amongst all the owners?
It's as I understand it, Tim, it's a common element.
Okay.
And so it's spread among everyone. And I don't think that an individual owner can make the decision to take theirs down or not take it down. I think the way we would anticipate proceeding, though, is if there is an affected owner who feels strongly about having their chimney, I don't think it's right for this group to make the decision to take it down. So if there is an individual owner that is impacted and wants their chimney to stay, then we'll figure out a way to address that.
Okay, thank you.
So that opens up some dialogue. We identified 5 chimneys that need repair. Do we want to expand the scope to include additional chimneys other than the 5 that have been earmarked for repair?
But only 5 have been determined to be a problem.
Okay.
So,
Yeah.
so we won't include any other ones at this point.
Okay.
Okay, because there are some of us, including myself, who
Mhm.
use one of my fireplaces.
Mhm.
So I do want my fireplace.
Mhm.
And if, like, take for instance 1418,
Mhm.
if she wants her fireplace, which she said she does, then we have to fix it.
Okay.
Because we can't just destroy the fireplace, in my opinion. If that's part of her, unit, you're now taking away something she has or I have, and I don't think that's legally viable.
So just for clarity,
Whether it's legal or not, I don't think it's the right thing to do.
okay, so we're going to limit the scope to these 5 that have been identified, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah, these 5 are the ones that were identified as the problem, and that the other ones were okay. Now, I assume when Caleb goes around, I'm hoping he will do some extra little tidbits around some of the chimneys. I want to talk to him about that. Just to make sure they're, reinforced a little bit, maybe. Just added support. I mean, just naturally what I do whenever I get into something. It's like when you go in to take out an engine, you change the water pump at the same time. You get things done while you're in there. So while we're already in there, let's see what else we can do to help it.
So a quick follow-up, Josh, is there any way that we can add language to our meeting, let's say in 2 weeks and 14 days, that allows the board for the next time that we do an inspection, if there is a chimney that
Yeah, I think, right, you
in
want language
repair.
that says if we find another one that may have to be included, we
That's a
want
great
to be
idea.
able to include it. We'd have to notify the owner, make sure it's okay, in my opinion. But I don't want to, and I don't think the board wants to step on anybody's toes who's using their chimney and, needs it for exhaust.
So what you're setting up, to take a vote to remove a chimney that's discovered in the future to require repair is easy enough. To take a vote to remove the ones known to need repairs is quite easy. Understand though that if you remove, several of them and repair 1 or 2 and leave the rest, they all remain common elements. So when
Right.
other
Right.
chimneys require repair in
No,
the
right,
future, it's an
No, I
expensive
get that.
item.
Yeah, that's fine. No, I get that. That's okay.
But I guess for clarity, can we put language that says 5 years from now, if we find a chimney that needs repair, that's beyond repair, we can remove it without a vote?
Checking with owner though.
Sure, I mean, that's
an owner.
we can include
Yes
that
or no?
language.
I think the threshold for adding language to the declaration itself is going to be different. So the threshold for material alteration is quite low. That's the majority of the quorum. I think an amendment, I didn't look it up, it's probably 2/3 of the owners or something like that.
Yeah.
I think so.
I don't know that we.
Yeah, so to
That
add
seems like
language,
a lot.
that's a much bigger project. To simply get approval to remove the ones that are known to need repair and that are discovered in the future to need repair, that's easy enough. If you want to stop and ask the owner, I don't even know that you need motion like that, but we can add it for sure.
Okay, good.
Okay.
Thanks.
We have a hand up there, yeah.
I have a question just because of my ignorance. If you have a non-vented fireplace, do you need a chimney?
From what I understand, what I've been told is you need a vent for gas. So even though you have a ventless, you still have to have in that cavity somewhere coming out to the roof or some on the side, a vent for gas that develops in. So by law, you have to have a vent. So whether it's in the chimney, I don't know. I don't know the specifics on the codes for that. But that's what I've been told, that you have to have a vent in there. You have a ventless, you still have to have a vent.
Okay, so, because I asked, we're getting ready to update ours. And I asked whether I should have the chimney capped or not. They said, yes, you should have it capped.
Right. But just make sure if you're keeping your chimney, you put a vent in somewhere. Like on my chimney, I have a vent off the side. So in other words, my chimney comes on the outside of my building, and I have a vent on the side for gas. So in other words, gas builds up in that cavity, has to go somewhere. So it comes out that vent.
Then you can still have a cap on it.
Yeah, I have a cap on mine, and this is on the side because my chimney's on the side, my structure's on the side of the building, so it protrudes outside of the wall.
But there's no way for me to know whether there's been on my chimney.
Well, you'd have to go look and see. So in other words, if that chimney was a regular chimney with a spark arrestor on it, that's your vent. But now if you are going to cap it, you've got to have some way where that cavity has a vent through it, where the air can get out. If there's gas developing in that cavity, it has to be vented out.
But do you have to go up on the roof to see if there's a vent?
I am not clear on that. All I know is it has to be vented. I haven't gotten into specifics, what the codes say, where, how, or what. I don't know.
I don't know how you feel, but I don't really want a bunch of people going up and looking on the roof at the vents. So if we're already up there on the roof, I think that would be an appropriate time to find out.
We can definitely tell if there's a vent up there. There should be one anyway. They should have put vents on all the chimneys anyway.
But would that be something worth looking at while you're
Yes.
up there?
Specifically, we weren't looking for it. That's not what our charge was. Our charge was to look at the chimneys themselves for structure. We weren't looking for vents. I can have one of the roofers take a look and see if we got a vent up there. It's not a big deal to put a vent in. Even if we took yours down, you still could probably vent it with a hose, with a pipe coming out.
Well, that's why I asked the question, because it tells the owners that if they had a non-vented fireplace, they might make a different decision than if they thought they could no longer use their fireplace.
Well, for instance, like Walt's unit, 1409, he has a ventless. So he has to have a vent also coming out the top, okay, or the side. So his structure, what they did is his chimney is very small. It doesn't go much above the clip. So they capped his total. 1409, 1410 are completely capped already. So I didn't see anything on the top vent, so it must be on the side. I assume somebody put a vent in. If they didn't, we're gonna have to make sure there is vent.
Well, I was just saying it might help these people make a decision if they have a fireplace,
Right.
thinking they can no longer use it if you take the chimney down, but if in fact they can.
They can, if we take the chimney down and nobody put in a vent, then if they want to put in a ventless system, they're gonna have to go back, open up the roof and put a vent in.
But wouldn't that be the time to talk about it when you're talking about removing their chimney?
Yeah, I understand what you're saying. It gets complicated. That means anybody who wants to put one in down the road, that means, in my opinion, that person will have to pay for the cost to go back up on the roof, open up the roof and put a vent in. Because we shouldn't be going around putting vents in chimneys that aren't being used for no fireplace boxes.
No, all I'm saying is if someone is using their fireplace and that's why they want to
Right.
keep the chimney, but there's a way that they can keep the chimney.
We can do
I
that
mean,
now,
Right.
but if they come down the road and want it, then it's a whole different scenario.
I know, but I just thought it might help them make a decision about what they want to do with their chimney.
Right, I don't think we have too many ventless fireplaces. I know Waltz is. I don't know of anybody else. Does anybody on board have a ventless fireplace? That they're running gas in with no vent, it's completely ventless. See, I don't think there's hardly any.
And I don't know whether you have to have that. I don't know what the.
I've been told that
Rule
that's
over it.
that's the statute. You have to have a vent for gas in the.
Corey, your hand is up. You have a question?
Yes, good morning. If we start taking down chimneys and change the look of Windsong, do we have to go to ARB or AIPCA or anything?
RB has already approved it.
Okay, great.
This is Dolores Rodden. I have a ventless and it was there when I bought it and I use it. So I have no idea if the previous owner, if Jack put a vent in.
Okay. All right, we'll take a look at that, Dolores.
Okay, 1404.
Yep.
Sorry.
1403 also, we don't know.
Gretchen has a question.
For the board, 1414, we've done extensive work on our chimney in the last 2 years, including capping it. And less than 45 days ago, we found water inside the chimney. So we would be more than happy to have you just remove our chimney and give us a solid roof.
Okay.
And the reason it came down the chimney because it came through the spark arrestor. That's why.
Okay.
Because you
Well,
don't have a wind or a rain shield on that spark arrestor. So when the winds are blowing sideways, they go into your vent, down inside your fireplace.
okay. Well, we're good with no chimney. We don't use it. We go to Florida to go to the beach, not have a fireplace. We have that elsewhere, so we're good with
We've
removal.
already had the repairs done on the for this purpose downstairs. Had to take a whole ceiling and replace it, so that's why we're
Yeah,
still
we're
chimney.
good with removal on 1414.
You know, that'll have to be a vote at the, when we have the meeting.
That's fine. That's fine. We're just in favor of it for our
Yeah,
unit.
I got it. Gretchen, did you have a question?
I do. I am the new owner of 1417. I don't actually know anything about our chimney. But I think my question is for Grant. It sounded to me like the 5 chimneys that were inspected were never when they were initially installed, they weren't done correctly. So if I'm hearing that correctly, my fear is that we're going to address 5 chimneys now, and then in a few years, some other chimneys are going to be in the same state. Like if none of them were, I'm assuming the building was built by one builder at one time.
Probably.
And so,
It's a great question.
yeah.
Yeah, it's a great question. Yeah, I've just seen those 5 chimneys. You know, it's possible, you know, if different chimneys were built by a different crew, that there may be some variation in the quality, you know, of the framing that was done. I think it's certainly possible that there may be similar kinds of issues in terms of inadequate connections, you know, with the framing. I just haven't personally seen those other chimneys. I think probably the most proactive approach from a structural standpoint and a moisture management standpoint in terms of just longevity of the roofs would probably be to tear out all of the chimneys. Now, I understand that's difficult because there may be a lot of residents who want to keep their chimneys and want to use the chimneys, and I certainly understand that. But yeah, I do think that there's probably risks associated with leaving the rest in place. Just, you know, especially for moisture management. Everywhere that you have a wall intersect a roof, you know, that plane is a, you know, prime location for water to enter the roof structure, you know, and obviously if you have flashing, which is performed correctly, you know, obviously that will be mitigated, but you know, the geometries in a lot of these are so complex that it's going to be fairly difficult. So that would be my kind of recommendation. I think that's kind of what you're getting at, but I also understand that a lot of people want to basically keep the chimneys in place. So, yeah, but if you're asking for my recommendation, I would just say tear them all out.
Well, I guess before we do that, does it make sense to look at all the chimneys and do some type of assessment to decide what
We
the status
can,
is?
I think, and I know there's later on in the meeting. I know there's some discussion about Unit 1402. There's been some damage that's been discovered in 1402. I think that there is, I know there's, I think, scheduled balcony inspections for the fall. I think it's definitely worth considering performing an evaluation of the chimneys, and we can certainly get into that. I think that there are other items, though, regarding components of these buildings that are probably a higher priority. Like if I had to assign a prioritization in terms of what we need to evaluate and what would have the most benefit from an evaluation, I would probably rank those balconies and exterior walls as being a higher priority than the chimneys, just because those are more integral to life safety of the occupants and to the overall structural integrity of the buildings. If one of these chimneys were to, say, fail, like that would be bad, right? Obviously, there would be substantial property damage, but I think that the risk to life safety there is a lot lower, right? Like if, you know, if there's a hurricane and everybody's evacuated, or if you have somebody sheltering in place, I think that if one of these chimneys were to fail, the risks are not as appreciable as some of the other common elements of the buildings. But We can certainly do that. You know, we can certainly get into some of these attics and look at more of the chimneys if that's the direction we want to go.
One last question, I guess, and pardon my ignorance, but do the chimneys have to be adjusted at the same time as the roof? Because if so, that I guess that I was thinking those two
That
things.
would be ideal. I mean, this would be the time to do it. If repairs and adjustments are going to be made to the chimneys, it would be now. That would be probably the most economical time, right? Because the tile is off the roof, and access to the chimneys will be greatest now during the re-roof project.
Thank you.
Other questions or comments? I think it's a valid point to as we have this interim period where we have to do the notice, if maybe we took a look at some of the other chimneys. I don't know what all's involved.
Well, Oscar and NGM went through all our chimneys.
Okay.
These are the 5 they thought were in bad shape. The rest of them they thought were fine, were okay. And then when they go around doing the roofing, like I said, we're probably going to do some additional little things here and there on those chimneys to make sure they're okay. That's where we ended up after reviewing with NGM and Oscar, which I trust Oscar a lot. He was up there, he looked at every chimney, and these are the ones he came back with. So I think, you know, right now, I mean, if we want to vote to do all of them, then we can do that too. Just realize that if we do all the chimneys cost-wise, you're looking at probably another assessment for sure, just to take them down. Let's figure $5 to $7 grand each to take them down. But 30, we don't have 33, we have 20 some chimneys. So just so you guys know the cost. Yeah, we're getting hit, as everybody knows, pretty hard right now between roof project, and we're building 14 and 10 and 9. We don't know where that's going to end up yet. So, letting it wait.
Any other discussion on the chimney situation? If not, I don't see any hands. If not, let's move to reconstruction on 1409 and 1410. Just for the benefit of the group, every Wednesday, Matt, Mike, Kelly, Josh, and I try to get on a conference call and talk about the progress and any issues. And thus far, at least in terms of the financial piece, the insurance company has advanced money. We have a process where we send pay requests from the contractor for approval to the insurance company. I feel like I know we're about to get into some change orders, maybe have gotten one that are going through to the insurance company. And I just wanted to open the floor for any discussion about that. If Walt, Tim, and Sarah have questions that we might be able to answer. I know there were some questions raised about some of the methodologies in the units, and I think our goal is to get Grant, as soon as he gets back, out there to take a look and make sure that we're or whomever that we're doing everything the right way to make sure that the units are sound when they're completed and handed back to the owners. This has taken a really long time. I know I'm not saying anything new to Tim, Sarah, and Walt, but we certainly want to make sure that it's done right when we hand those units back over and they get back in business there. So any questions, any comments that anyone has?
Yeah,
Now, I think if we get them out there to inspect, get the engineer
Well,
out
I
there.
think they have to be there when we're there. We need Grant or whoever's seeing this project. We need to be there to show them what we're seeing. Well, I'll be honest with you, we're seeing things that are not appropriate and not being taken care of. Beam supports that are not being supported properly. Beam supports that are not going down to the bottom floor. Notching that is out of spec completely. Holes like Swiss cheese in major support beams. Beams that are not straight. This is what we're seeing. So we want to be there when the inspectors, whoever Grant or whoever is there, so we can point this out. Because it seems like the crew there doesn't understand. They don't, when I point it out or when we show them things, they just go like this. They've been told to do what they do. Now, I did get the one notching beam that I've been very vehement on, where they took a support beam and put 3 2x4s together and notched it 1 7/16 to run the wire through instead of rerunning the wire through the center of the beams, was a catastrophe. That would fail at some point down the road for sure. When you take 1 7/16 away from supports, that's terrible. The maximum allowed by anybody is 7/16, 7/8. So they were way over, almost twice as much. So they are replacing those supports because we pointed it out to them, but we need to go through some others. The problem too is that the preceding owner in 1410, there was obviously no inspections done or nobody followed through, but he did it wrong. The supports are not down to the bottom floor. They were not done. So we must do them. They are still not being done. They're covering up the wall as I speak. And I pointed it out to them yesterday. They have to carry those supports down to the bottom floor. And they're not doing it.
Well, Alan, I think if we get Grant out there
We got to
where
because
you
they're covering it up.
can
Yep.
where you can show him what your
Yep.
concerns have been,
Yep. I mean,
we need to.
there's a crypt wall on the bottom floor. What they did was to raise the ceiling up.
Is everything safe?
Everything's safe now.
Okay.
Oh, is that
Your
Mickey,
GFI is almost set.
Mickey.
Outside.
Those three.
Mickey, we can hear you. Thank you.
there we go.
On the bottom floor, there's actually a crypt wall, small crypt wall. And in that crypt wall, you have to support from that crypt wall down, which is only about that much. And then from there is the other sill plate downstairs that goes to the bottom. Neither one of those are being supported for the beams upstairs at all right now. That's something that you've got to look at. Definitely.
Yeah, I think the answer is that we need to get these guys out there where we can point, where you can point out the things you're concerned about
Yeah,
before we get.
so we have to,
too far
because they're
along
covering
with
this up
this.
right now, and we got to get to it before they.
I got a question. Just it's Alan, appreciate your all your diligence on this, but who, even going forward, how are we to ensure ourselves that they continue to adhere to local codes and local specifications that don't just get covered up before we notice them? I mean, whose responsibility is it to be monitoring it? Is that us as owners?
No.
To be okay.
I think it's you guys, right?
Yeah. Stop.
Okay.
So there's an oversight on this.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Yes.
I'm going to interject. Apologies. I just have a quick question for the board. Who is the engineer who designed these repairs for the fire damage?
Rice.
Rice is the architect.
Okay, there's an architect.
Yeah.
And from what
Is
I
there a licensed engineer who is to put together a repair design for the structural damage?
Yeah, Grant, did you not see the plans that were generated by Rice?
No.
Okay, they're in the, if you can come over here, they're in the fireplace. If you don't have a copy at your place, You guys should. There is a copy in, okay, you guys have copies. You should look at them. From what I am understanding, this is Henry, who's in charge of fields on this project. He told me those plans are worthless. He's not even using the plans. He's doing it
Okay.
what he
So-
feels he should do.
Here's where we're kind of going with this is, and I'm sorry to interject, but basically, I think it sounds like the predicament that you're in, and I've seen these two units briefly. I didn't, do a full comprehensive walkthrough of them, but I've seen them a little bit. I think the general problem that you have, right, and I have not seen the plans either. If you have plans that aren't comprehensive, right, you've got a contractor that's basically sort of at a loss, right, as to, exactly what they should be doing. They're not following any plans. I think that you have an issue here that's more than just, a construction oversight issue. I think you've got, a lack of, a repair design here, really. I think that in order for these repairs to be done correctly, you actually need a set of construction documents to go off of that's going to inform the contractor of how to appropriately do the works. They're not just guessing. Otherwise, they're just going to be going out there. They're going to be doing what they think is best. And then, we're going to be going out there and we can point out what we think is possibly deficient, but there's a limitation to that, right? Like ideally, we would do an analysis, right, to see if a beam is adequate, if a stud pack beneath the beam is adequate, if a wall is adequate. There are formal design tools that you use to verify code compliance. And if we're just going out there every week or 2 weeks or whatever and look at what Fields has done without a set of documents in hand, that really hampers our ability, I think, to provide adequate construction oversight, if that makes sense.
What it sounds like we need to do here is have you guys take a closer look at these drawings and figure out what's going on in terms of the reconstruction, and if what we have is not adequate, then we need to figure out what we need before we get further along on this.
I think that that's appropriate.
So we need somebody to you guys to take charge of looking at those things. Take a look at those plans. Tell us if they're adequate. If they're not, tell us if they're adequate and what we need to do next.
Okay. In fact, Chris, if you're available,
The sooner that happens,
after
is
the
better.
meeting, I would like to go over with you and show you some things before they get covered up. I can do that. Okay.
I have a question. Did Fields make any of these comments as a part of their bid process that the plans weren't adequate enough?
No.
Okay.
No, but Grant, you hit it right on the head. That's exactly what happened. The plans are not germane to what they're doing.
Well,
So they're-
Alan, we don't know that.
Well,
We
that's
just
what-
need them.
that-
We need them to look at it and tell
But
us.
Fields already told me that.
Well, I understand what Fields said, but I don't know whether Fields knows what he's talking about.
But he's doing the construction. Nobody else is doing it. They're doing it based on what they think they should do. They're not following anything. They're just saying, okay, put a beam here, put this over here, cut some 2x4s over here.
Okay.
And I think just for some clarity, I think part of the scope of work here is to replace existing. That's what their job is to do, is replace existing. Now, where some of that
It's supposed to be repaired back to codes,
correct.
and whether it was existing or not,
But
what the insurance policy covers. Josh, tell me if I'm getting out of line. It is to put the structure back to codes. And if the codes have changed from the time that the original construction took place, it's still supposed to be built back to codes.
That's generally correct, sir. There's a caveat to that. That's true. The only asterisk there is if the damage is significant enough that it can be defined as a technical term called substantial structural damage. And in many cases, and I know this because I've done a few insurance evaluations for carriers. If a third-party engineer determines that substantial structural damage has occurred as a result of a loss, then in that case, the building components have to be brought up to code. And repair in kind is not is not allowed. But I think from what I've seen, I don't know if there's necessarily been substantial structural damage from the fire, if that makes sense. So I think you're probably out. I think you're probably right. I just wanted to make that distinction.
Okay, so I think our plan should be to get CSI out there and get a point person with their arms around the plans, what Fields is doing. If we paid for plans that are worthless, then we have a conversation with Rice. And get this thing on track.
I have a problem too, when I go in and I see the wires being, that are already existing. I know you don't want to hear this, John, but it has to be said. When Fields tells me that they won't replace a wire, so it goes through the center of the supports for the beams, because it's existing. I said, that's not appropriate. You gotta rewire that wire from the panel and then make sure it goes through all the support beams. They refuse to do it. They want to leave the wire there. And I don't think that's appropriate. Is it, Grant?
But that's why we want to get these guys out there to do this, so they can.
Yeah, that's a great question. I think you've got so I think you have maybe a couple problems here. I think you're definitely correct. Typically, from a structural standpoint, you do want any notches or penetrations in your beam to generally be at the center, both center along the span of the beam and also the center point, because that's where the internal stresses in that beam are the lowest. That's definitely correct. The other question then is just it all is going to depend on what is in Field's contract, which I've not been privy to. If their contract is to fix fire damage and not to correct necessarily every structural deficiency that's in the unit that's identified, then realistically you're looking at a change order, right? To identify additional defective items that have been found, they're not necessarily in their original contract. So, I understand why Fields might be saying that that's not covered by their contract, because it's a contract issue. And they're not necessarily obligated to fix every deficiency that's uncovered. And so, I think there's definitely probably an opportunity for us to go in and perform probably a deeper analysis and look at these plans that were put together by Rice and see if we need to take more action. I think it's likely, I'm assuming that the plans were developed by Rice were to address the fire. But just from the limited things that I have seen inside the unit, I think that there are deficiencies and damage that are present that are not fire related. Now, I've got a few pictures up now, but just from what I've seen, there's damage to the masonry shear wall at the side elevation that's been uncovered. There's damage to the exterior walls that's moisture related. And I have not seen this, but from my understanding, there's an original wall, I think, at the bottom floor that's actually bowing, because that wall is overstressed essentially, and it's not adequate to support the loads above it. So I think you've got kind of a multifaceted problem here. Fields came in to address, a limited amount of damage. We took all the finishes off. We found way more damage than we knew was there originally. That nobody really anticipated. So, I think it probably makes sense to just pump the brakes a little bit. We can do a kind of thorough walkthrough of the units, do an evaluation, and assess if we need to put together the plans, or if another engineering firm needs to put together a more comprehensive set of plans and what the path is moving forward. I think that that's a realistic and appropriate step to take at this point in time before everything's covered up.
Okay.
I don't know. Do we think that kind of adequately summarizes it? I don't know if Matt's still there. I know Matt has seen the unit.
Yes.
Yeah, no, that makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
Corey.
Does the city building inspector do periodic inspections as the work's being done down there?
I don't know the answer to that. Does anyone?
They're supposed to. I think there is a framing inspection that has to be done, and then generally like electrical, like your MEPs will have to be inspected as well.
That might be helpful to our discussion with Rice afterwards.
Right. Okay, I think we have a tentative plan going forward. The next topic on our agenda today is the discussion with CSI about Corey's unit 1402 and what it appears that we're looking at there, and try to come up with the appropriate steps going forward.
We also, before I was remiss with the chimney section. We do have a proposal from CSI that is up for discussion for 1402. So I just want to include that in the discussion. We have one for the chimneys as well too. I missed that. I have to backtrack, but there is a proposal up for discussion for 1402.
I'd like to table the one for the chimneys. But 1402.
Yeah, so we figure out what we.
So we figure out 1402. We should talk.
Yeah. So, whoever you guys, CSI, want to?
Yeah, Grant. Why don't you
what-
get? Grant did an inspection over at 1402, so he's got some vital information to share.
I do. I'm gonna pull up the photos here, Matt, if you don't mind me sharing my screen. Just a minute.
Let me. This. Should be okay.
Find the memo.
Yeah, you should be able to share on his.
Oh yeah, he's still
photos.
All right.
All right, I've got just the draft memo that I put up here with just some photographs to kind of illustrate what the issues are. And I think this is going to lead us maybe into a broader discussion based on what we're also seeing at 1409 and 1410. I'm going to go ahead and share my monitor. All right, so the Corey took it upon himself to remove the drywall above the ceiling where the drywall was cracked, and this is kind of what we've uncovered. So this is the present condition of the beam assembly, which is supporting a significant amount, I think, of the third or fourth floor. Basically, you have a 3-ply 2-by beam, which has been reinforced with a steel flitch plate. And this is collecting all of the floor joists, basically, for I think probably a majority of the third or fourth floor. This goes and then it bears on this exterior stud wall. And as you can see, there's multiple issues here. I think a lot of the damage, I think, is mostly moisture related. Obviously, there's been prolonged moisture intrusion and decay at this spot. You can see that there's rot and moisture related decay at the beam here. So that beam is starting to give out. And then there's also moisture related decay at the stud pack, which is supporting it. It's possible, based on the weight that this was supporting, that this stud pack was never adequate to begin with. And in fact, I doubt that it probably is. If you're going to use 2x4 studs, they probably needed a lot more of them than this, or potentially a 4x4 or 4x6 post or several posts, just based on the amount of gravity load and weight that's actually bearing at this spot. Right, so you have a potential deficiency to begin with that's been kind of aggravated by this decay, and you can also see that the wall sheathing behind it is also decayed. This is kind of another view of the damage we have at the beam where it's bearing on the wall. And this is the sill plate, basically, that wall bears on. And I believe that it bears on a masonry wall at the first floor. And that's also rotten. So got some pretty serious damage that was hiding at this point. Obviously, this has to be addressed. given how integral this beam is to the unit. So that we put together a proposal basically, and I think there's kind of two parts to that. The first part is a destructive testing regimen, and the second part of that is a repair design that could be potentially applicable to the entire community, depending on how in depth we go. Having seen, I'm going to stop sharing my screen for a second. I'm going to pull up a couple more photographs from 1409 and 1410. Give me 1 minute here. So this is at 1409, I believe. So we're looking at the exterior wall here. This is just the wall cavity that was not visible until Fields began performing the repairs and opening up the wall cavities. So as you can see here, we basically, I think, would have a new stud pack that they put in, but this is the original condition of this
Grant, we're
beam.
not seeing, we're not seeing anything.
Oh, I'm sorry, I forgot to click share. Okay, are y'all seeing that?
Give it just a minute. There it goes. Thank you.
Okay, so this is our new, what I believe is our new stud wall here, but behind that, this is at the rear beach elevation. This looks like the original sheathing and stucco assembly. So in black, you have basically your felt paper, which is intended as a moisture or a water resistive barrier basically between the stucco and the sheathing to protect the wall from moisture, which is trained with the stucco, right? So everywhere you see this black, there is no wall sheathing left. It has been totally and utterly destroyed. And the remaining sheathing that's there, which is a structural component of the wall that's intended to keep it from racking over, basically from wind forces, is pretty severely damaged. So right now, kind of our batting average, we've seen 1402, we've seen 1409 for different reasons, of course. But our batting average right now for damage to the exterior walls is 2 for 2. And, unfortunately, we just weren't able to, I think, see this from the outside because surprisingly, the stucco actually looks like it's in pretty good condition at a lot of these framed walls, which is surprising because typically when you have underlying structural damage that's as severe as this, you could typically see it, pretty readily in the stucco. It's cracked, it's spalled, it's falling off, but I guess surprisingly that just hasn't really developed here with the stucco assembly for whatever reason. So I think that it would be prudent, I think just based on these limited areas that we've seen so far at these two buildings, to conduct maybe a more thorough regimen of destructive testing across some of these buildings where there could be problematic areas in the stucco. Based on just the date of the building's construction, this moisture-related damage is going to be most closely associated with deficiencies in how the stucco was installed. So I think it would be prudent to understand what the extent of that damage is. And if we determine that there is, widespread and systemic damage, then we need to come up with a plan of action to address these, I think probably before the next milestone inspection for the community, which I think to my understanding, Matt, I think the last one was done a few years ago. So I think that's just kind of where we stand there. And then the other portion of our proposal is basically to put together a repair design. We can do something just to address the damage at that beam, right? We can replace the beam if needed, supplement the wall below it, repair the damage to the moisture damaged wall, repair the stucco. But we may want to consider also, depending on the results of this destructive investigation, coming up with a more comprehensive set of plans to address damage to these other buildings if the community, decides to pursue that, in the medium term. So that's just kind of what I've seen so far. I know it's not great news, but unfortunately I think it's the reality of what we're seeing out here, and I feel like it's just my duty to communicate that to y'all, that you may have a systemic problem that warrants further investigation.
Grant, on 1402,
Yes.
have you looked at everything that has to be replaced yet and how to fix it and approximate costing on it?
Well, it's difficult because we've performed one basically on-site visual inspection. I think here's kind of the difficulty, right? Is we can prepare a design to fix that beam, right? And to fix the wall below it. The problem is that we don't know really, because I have not seen any structural as-builds. I don't know if the community maintains those in our records. We could possibly perform a search with the county and see if they have anything in their records. But if the building is old enough, it's possible they don't have anything, because fortunately, a lot of these counties are not particularly good about keeping their records. It's hard to know if we need to address possible deficiencies at the wall below where the damage occurred. We also don't know how far the moisture damage extends in the wall. We don't know if the beams above that one have suffered similar damage. We've only seen the one beam. So, we can go forward with, just replacing what we know is damaged. But that doesn't necessarily guarantee that we're going to find and identify everything that's problematic, if that makes sense.
So what are you saying? We need to do further investigation then to find further damage?
Yeah, I think that would be the best path forward, and that's going to involve, probably a day of, destructive testing. Maybe half day, maybe a day. That would allow us to put together the most comprehensive repair approach if we go that way. If we want to be economical about it, we can do, or we can prepare a repair design without that destructive testing based on the information that we know. But there is a risk there, right, that we're not catching everything that's deficient. So, my recommendation would be that we just perform some testing to understand the extent of what is damaged and what needs to be repaired.
So the proposal, thank you, Grant. Thank you for that explanation. So the proposal that the board has been presented with is destructive testing for observations, includes removing stucco from the outside, selectively removing some drywall on the inside, evaluating the adequacy of the building envelope, and document the conditions. $3,500 so far, through this process. And to add a little color to Grant's comment, we've been tracking this unit for a couple of years now. This isn't something that came up, overnight. Jeff Sellers has inspected. He's our other engineer that's on staff. He's the
principal engineer for CSI.
Principal engineer for CSI. Yep. So he's been in there. Grant's been in there. We've been tracking it. Herb originally opened a file a few years back. So this is the next logical step, is to take a closer look.
So Grant, if we do this next logical step that Matt's laid out, that will give you enough information based on what you're telling us, so that when we do the Sears over, we pretty much know what we're up against on the other units as well. If you do the destructive testing, will that help you get to where you need to?
I think that's a good question. So I think if we want to perform a more comprehensive scope of destructive, or if we want to have the best possible information to adequately inform the Sears as to how widespread the damage is, I think we'd want to maybe expand the scope of DTs beyond what is in that proposal to maybe 2 days. And I think that we would ideally perform testing at multiple buildings just to get kind of an adequate sample size so that we're gathering what we know is representative information about the entire community. I mean, I know it's a little more complicated, right? Because obviously it's disruptive to unit owners. Aesthetically, it's going to leave the buildings, at least temporarily, in a state where aesthetically they don't look great, right? Because we're taking a bunch of cuts into the walls. And they can do temporary repairs, right? So yeah, there's maybe some temporary aesthetic problems there and some disruption there. But I think to get the best sort of snapshot of where the entire community is at this point in time, we might want to do like one more day, take some representative cuts from a few more buildings at different points along the exterior envelope would be my recommendation. And we can go back and kind of revise the proposal to reflect that if that's what we want to move forward with.
And if you say a couple of cuts into some of the other buildings that we can fix them by stucco and paint them, so it'll be fine, right? I mean, that's, okay.
Yeah.
I mean, it's only a temporary look with the cutting. and
Yes.
stuff.
Yeah, it would be temporary, right? But you can patch that.
How long would it take you to get us a new quote on doing all that?
But I could probably by tomorrow.
Okay.
Destructive test, it's fairly simple, right? It's just the amount of observation time we need on site, really, to direct fields or whomever else is performing the cuts. So.
Okay. Well, we're gonna have Supreme stucco on site starting next week also. So
Okay.
we can also use them, so that's not a problem.
Okay, great.
So generally, just to clarify and piggyback off what Grant's saying, our proposals will be for our cost, and then preferably we get the cost from Supreme or whoever.
Correct, to do the stucco.
To do their cuts and patchbacks.
Okay.
Right.
We're happy to reach out to Caleb and get Supreme's number and contact.
Yep, that'd be great.
And what are we talking about here? Are we talking about $10,000? Are we talking about
Probably double what you've already given us, like 7,500. You got 3,500.
I think that's probably realistic for about 2 days.
Probably double is $7,000.
Yeah. Plus the contractor cost, which would be a little bit lower.
So probably total $8,000 max.
So this proposal, we could approve it with a maximum dollar amount if the board.
That's what I'm inclined to do, is to suggest to the board that we approve that proposal up to
not to exceed
X.
how much?
I'm okay with 10.
10. 10. Okay. Not to exceed $10,000. Is there a motion?
I move to approve $10,000 maximum amount for the CSI evaluation of the stucco and 1402 for 2 days.
Is there a second?
Second. All those.
Any more discussion?
Who's seconding?
I just had a question. Sorry. Okay. Is it gonna?
We vote. Go ahead.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Well, I just was curious if it will be done. I mean, well, first of all, go ahead. I want to hear what you have to say first. I have a list of questions, so go ahead.
Well, we're about to vote on it, so
We're about to vote
if there's
on-
a question, now's the time.
I have a question.
Okay.
In the investigation for this couple of days, the walls are just filled with mold from the leaking of the roof over the years and years. Are we going to look at the mold issue as well?
So part of the destructive testing would be to uncover or reveal the structural components. And then, yes, that would include anything that's going on with stucco, lath, the sheeting, insulation. So really observing everything that we can from those test cuts.
Great, thank you.
You're welcome.
So it'll be all units, is what you're saying? Like this, just we'll go through all units because I know Al, in the past,
Not
I think it
all
was like
units. Not all units. They're only going to pick certain. They're only going to do destructive testing like they're talking about cutting in a few of the units, not all of the units.
Okay, I know that you had mentioned in our unit of when you were in there, fire alarms a while back, you were saying, oh, there's some bowing here, and then there was that issue with the chimney we got fixed, and it never got looked at. So I definitely think that our unit should be looked at because you had mentioned that to me like a year ago.
14. Okay.
All right. Question, all in favor? Sure.
And can you hear me?
Yes.
And this is Christina, not Joan. Christina, coach. Grant, we own 1400 and 1406, excuse me, in building 1. And we were wondering if the damage in 1402 affects the 2 end units of building 1. In other words, the structural beams or the intrusion. And we would certainly like maybe one of those 2 units to be looked at, maybe 1400 preferably.
Yeah, so part of the destructive testing and the recommendation that Grant made is to really see, are we looking like at an isolated issue, or are we looking at a systemic issue that could be developing behind this stucco that is just not visible. So we're happy to look at 1400 if that's your preference, and then add it to the list and see. Generally, how we try to tackle destructive testing is we'll do like a quick walk to see, okay, let's choose known areas. Right now, we have a couple of good known areas where there are potentially components deteriorating behind the stucco. And let's choose also observed good areas, no stucco issues, no deflections, no nothing. And let's open those up as well to see what's happening. So we want to try to be selective, but also random at the same time with it.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right. Call the question. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay. Any more discussion on this topic before we move to a couple of what will hopefully be short issues? Hearing none. I just was hoping to get some observations after just a few days experience on the pool monitoring.
Let's pause. But why don't we do this? If we're done with CSI and Josh, we could dismiss them at this point. If we want to keep them here, we can.
Aren't we going to stick around and do our Wednesday meeting right after this? Or do we need to?
I would,
I don't know that we need to. I may have one question for you. I'll call you or email you.
I think we've got marching orders for the week. I think.
Okay. All right.
Good there.
That works for me. Good for you, Mike. Okay. Thank you, gentlemen.
Grant, thank you.
Thank you, Matt. Thank you, everybody.
Yep.
Nice to meet you.
Next, as I mentioned, we just have a few days of experience, but I was hoping to get any observations that people have made on the pool monitoring and how that's working. And because obviously while I'm here today, I'm not usually. So, any thoughts on that? Anybody on the line have observations?
I've seen, I can't remember the girl's name. She was, what's her name? Jada. Yeah, she was getting up, walking around, shutting gates.
Good.
Telling kids not to die, no horseplay. So
good.
I think she had positive influence there.
I'm glad to hear it because I mean it's not a huge investment of money, and if it takes care of some of the issues that we've had in the past or helps do that, I think it's great.
She was not able to work on the floor, so a guy came in.
Yeah.
He had no clue what to do.
Got it.
And Jim, this is David.
David,
am I correct in assuming that I mean, we're here now. I can look out the window to confirm it, but she's not here today. She relocated the table from the pool deck to underneath the canopy by the bathrooms?
Yes, they're sitting under the canopies by the bathrooms.
Okay.
But did not relocate a table.
No,
No,
no table,
that's
just
just where
chairs.
she's.
No, just physical. Yeah,
Right.
got it.
Yeah, that's where they're sitting.
Good. Thank you.
So the schedule, just for everyone's convenience, I put the schedule on the website, so it's on the
Okay,
calendar
good.
feature of the website. So they're basically engaged every weekend through the month of July and the first weekend of August. You know, so they're weekends only. I think you made a comment they're not there today. I don't think they're scheduled to be there today, just on the week.
Just on the weekends now?
That's the contract that
No,
we
I'm just asking. I'm not
No,
critiquing, I'm just asking.
Yep. And they're there from 10 a.m. to 6 p.m.
okay.
Yeah, Matt, I read that in the
Yeah,
contract.
10
So
a.m. to 6 p.m.
I see that they weren't expected in today, but they pick up again on the 11th.
It's this weekend. Is that the
Saturday,
11th? Yeah, the 11th this weekend.
Yeah.
And so the idea there, I think, at the end of the day, is to maintain order and civility.
Yeah.
We made it through the 4th of July without any incidents, to my knowledge.
Yeah, it actually went very well.
So far, so good.
So far, so good.
Potentially a presence did what it was supposed to do. So
Okay. Next, unfortunately, for those of you that don't know this, David Pallister has stepped down from the board. He and Denise have their unit on the market. We hate to see them go. I did want to take an opportunity to thank David for the work that he's done as a board member and his service. And we all really appreciate it, David, and thank you. And we will miss you guys.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, David.
That does bring us with a board vacancy. So we're going to be, I think it's the board's responsibility to fill that. And we'll be working on that. Hopefully we'll be able to do that in fairly short order, maybe at the next meeting. So just an update there on that topic. And I don't have anything else. Is there any other new business to be discussed?
I just had something I wanted to mention, just to kind of put on the radar. I'm Ann Ziegler in 1414, and I'm a property manager, and so I'm working with another community right now, and it's been brought up, HB 803, that Governor DeSantis just signed into law about the construction permit changes for 2026. When you just look at it straight up, it doesn't look like it affects that much, but deep down in it, we had Atlantic Security out to the pool there, looking at the gates already, and he mentioned to us that deep down in that writing, it says that if you have like gates, they have to be exitable like quickly without a key. So it means like key fobs or card systems. So, and it would be like July 1, 2027. So I'm digging deep into it. Like we have that question for Josh actually with our other communities, because we're wondering how much that really affects us. But the pricing of it with just 3 gates on my other one is between $21,000 and $30,000. So if it is something that becomes, that we have to do, just that I wanted to maybe look into that since it's something on the horizon for this next year. So
Yeah, I didn't know about that. Thanks.
Mhm.
And I will see if we can get some info from Josh on that. So thanks, Ann. That's helpful.
Yeah. Thank
I think in that bill, there's also some language about night swimming. It's something that we might need to look into.
I don't usually night swim.
Lighting criteria and
Okay.
foot candles and those kinds of things. We might have to look into that. I think our rules are till 10 o'clock is permissible swimming, so we might have to do a little investigating on that. Just take time.
Anything else for the good of the order? If not, we'll stand adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Close the meeting.
Yeah. I took an executive action and adjourned it.